Hello boxing fans, this is my second video of the day and I'm talking about Arthur Abraham. I've just read an article and it was about Arthur Abraham and who he wants to fight next. He's expecting to fight one of the winners from Kessler and Stieglitz. And I just wanted to say, is Arthur Abraham finished? You know, first I'd like to say Kalle Sauerland thought that Arthur Abraham was invincible at the very beginning of the Super 6 tournament, and it turns out how wrong he was. You know, talking about Abraham's mental and physical natural attributes, I'd like to say that he does like to load up on the hooks and he likes to force his power game on his opposition. He's got a decent amateur record but nothing spectacular, so he can box to a certain degree. You know, he's too small for 168 pounds naturally. He's too physically small, but he's too big for 160 pounds. He's too muscular and needs to slim down, too stocky, too wide. He's naturally slower than a lot of the 168 pound boxers, and that shouldn't be an issue for someone coming up in weight. You know, when was the last time someone was slower when they moved up? It's not really happened that much. He's got bad stamina, especially nowadays. In fights, he likes to fight in bursts, win the rounds late, and he does this by keeping the first half of the fight close, and then he goes on and has a big burst in the last minute to try and win the round. And to an extent it works in Germany, but elsewhere it doesn't seem to work. Now something I had put to me was, is this guy just an early peaker or a late developer? And you see, he was invincible at 160 pounds and stamina was just a slight issue then. And I think that maybe he's just naturally at the end of his career. And I'm going to give you an example of an early peaker, right? Look back to when you were in school and think of all the girls who were really hot, right? Where everyone rated well fit, right? Only 10% of those people, maybe even less, are still fit now. And that's because they peaked too early. And since then they've went downhill. And that is opposed to some of the Mingers, who only got better because they didn't have much to work with, you see? And obviously, unless they become fat or, you know, took a shovel to the face. That, you know, that will stop you peaking. But I'm going to give you some examples of early peakers in boxing. And Paul Williams was good in his younger days, but now he's not that good, and he's only in his late 20s. Ricky Hatton, he peaked at his fight with Costa Zoo. James Toney, he peaked at super middleweight. Manny Pacquiao peaked at 135 pounds for me. Felix Sturm peaked 3 or 4 years ago. Since then he's went downhill. And then there's the other one, obviously the late developers, and some of them can be like Floyd Mayweather. He's developed later on in his career. Shane Mosley developed in his late 30s. Except, you know, he did take some pets. I'm sure that had something to do with it, Shane. Nice one. Roy Jones Jr., he peaked in his 30s. Juan Manuel Marquez has peaked in his late 30s. And Sergio Martinez is now just becoming a pound for pound guy, and he's 36 years old. You know, these guys are late peakers, late developers. There's also the fact that Arthur Abraham may have took some past beatings, and let's be honest, the body is not designed to take punishment. Eventually it will start to regress. Andre Dirrell is an example. He took some serious punches from Dirrell. Dirrell just teed off on him all night long. He took some metal punches too, as it was the first loss of his career, even though it was at controversial circumstances. Then he took an absolute domination at the hands of Carl Froch. He was surgically taken apart. He was mentally destroyed before he was physically destroyed in that fight. He's never been the same since that bout. And Froch has a record of ending careers. Think of Mikhail Kessler. People say that eye problem was something to do with Andre Ward and those headbutts. Only to a certain point. Carl Froch finished the job on that eye. He destroyed that eye. And obviously then there's the Andre Ward beating, that just added insult to injury. You know, added to the misery. He took half the amount of punishment that he did against Froch, but he finished him at 168 pounds. And I personally think that at 168 pounds, he's finished physically and mentally, and maybe he's naturally at the end of his career. And I'm going to look at the last fight against Farias. You see, he knew what to do mentally. The mind was telling him perfectly what he needed to do. He needed to cut that ring down. He needed to land to that body. He needed to work on those big shots. The only problem was his body just couldn't accomplish it for the first few rounds. Later on, when Farias started slowing down from all the moving, he was able to start landing and then finish the job. So good for him, he could actually still pull the trigger. The only problem was it took him a while to load the gun. Now, that being said, is there still any fights that he can take at £160? You see, his name's been battered around with Bute, because Bute needs, some more names on his career. And, I don't see why he wouldn't take that fight, because, Bute's been hurt before. Abraham could hurt him again. His name more recently has been battered around with the Kessler versus Stieglitz winner, or even a loser. It doesn't matter, because both will be big fights, especially in Germany. You could also try his luck against George Groves and James DeGale. After all, he's fighting at the exact same level as DeGale right now, holding the European title. Abraham has had his chance of winning at least 3 of those fights, I think. And even if he didn't, he could make a lot of money doing it. Or, his other choice is he can move down to £160. And I think that would be his best option. But I think it's highly unlikely, because it'd be too hard for him to lose that amount of weight. 8 pounds in muscle mass. And then still be the same man he was before, Ash Roy Jones Jr. You can't lose muscle and still be the same guy. You see, you could fight Felix Storm. That could be an all-German bash-up. A big match for them both, which should be a huge German money spinner. You could also throw his name in for Sergio Martinez, who is always looking for credible opponents, and he's fought in Germany before. So why not fight again, especially if you're trying to build your name worldwide. Or maybe the Jermaine Taylor rematch. You see, it's not likely, because they're trying to make Jermaine Taylor fight a Sergio Martinez type fight. Maybe a Cesar Chavez Jr. type fight. But with the right money, it could happen in the USA. So I don't think he's over. I think he can fight at the world title level. I just don't see him winning at this level or fighting at the elite level ever again. I think he has the chance to make some real money. I just don't think he's going to win all of his bouts. Well, anyway, tell me what you think about Arthur Abraham. Tell me if you think he's finished. Tell me if you think he's an early peaker, or tell me if you think he's just physically beaten.